Plates and Pancakes. You're sitting down today with Anthony Evans. Anthony's a juvenile officer for Bates County and a youth basketball coach. He grew up in Gainesville, Missouri, and then went to College of the Ozarks. So you went to the College of the Ozarks. Now, that's an interesting school. How does that work down there?
Well, it's a work-study program. The kids, if you live on campus, you have to work so many 40 hours a week, work weeks. I think it's you have to work through the summer for that, and it pays for your room and board. I was a commuter, so I worked 15 hours a week, and that pays for your tuition. So during the semester, you work 15 hours a week, and that pays for your tuition for the school.
Well, I know down when we go on trips down there, you can go to their restaurant, and everything is done by the school. So they farm it, raise it, bring it into the kitchen, cook it, serve it. It's amazing what they do.
It's like its own community.
Yeah.
You don't really even have to leave campus. Of course, Branson's just right across Taneycomo, but yeah, you can just stay there, and they milk the cows there. They process the milk, and it's a farming school too.
It's a pretty cool school.
But you don't have to leave campus. You go nuts, I think, if you didn't leave. But
right.
No, it's a good program down there for kids.
Now, Gainesville, Missouri, I've never been there. Where's that at?
It's east of College of the Ozarks, Warren County. Branson's in Taney County. Ozark County is one county east, and that it's a county seat of Ozark County.
Okay. Now, you made it into being a juvenile officer. How did that all work out? Was that something you always wanted to do, or did it present itself? How does that work?
Well, I studied criminal justice, administrative justice down in College of the Ozarks. Actually, my wife, she got a teaching job up in Montrose. Mm-hmm. That was her first job out of school. We were engaged at the time, so I followed her up, and I got a job with the court system and an alternative school over in Henry County in Clinton. And I started there, I believe it was January of 1999. And in September of 99, a position opened up over here in Bates County, and Stacy and I moved over here.
So has it been something that's worked out really well for you? You've been doing it quite a while. Is it something you enjoy now, or?
I guess it gets in your blood. It's kind of like the only thing you know how to do now. So, no, I enjoy the kids. I enjoy the community here. Obviously, we've been around for 20 plus years. So it reminds me of my community back home. Uh-huh. Of course, our kids are here. This is where we wanted to raise our kids. Stacy, my wife, works in the school system, so this is home for us. And, of course, we've got a lot of good friends we met here, too, so it's home.
So when I first met you about 20 years ago, I remember you guys moving over. Your kids, my kids, same kind of age. You were quite a bit bigger than you are now. You really hit the weights hard. Was that something that you just picked up later on in life, or were you always kind of a meathead? How'd that work out?
It started at College of the Ozarks, really. I played basketball religiously in high school, and I guess I could have played for the school there as a walk-on, but I didn't. So I would play intramural pickup games. Just wasn't competitive enough. Mm-hmm. The only time I enjoyed doing that was when the college kids would want to come out and play, and they're not wanting to get injured, so they're not giving you 100%. So I wanted to stay competitive athletically with myself, so I started hitting the weights. Was like 96, 97, and picked it up from there. Kept on it for a while until the kids got older and their activities kind of pulled me away from it a little bit more and more.
So was it more of a focus on bodybuilding or all-around strength? What did you kind of aspire to do?
Well, it was more physique, I guess. I didn't do kind of like you guys do here as strength training, which is a totally different animal. Mm-hmm. I just chased the pump, so to speak.
Right.
I worked out so I could eat, because I like to eat, and I'd work out hard so I could choose to eat whatever I wanted to eat. So I didn't do the nutrition like you guys do either, but it was more a physique thing, chasing the pump.
Look good, feel good.
Yeah, and, you get addicted to it after a while. You knew that.
Right.
So you chase that. It's a certain style you kind of pick up. We're creatures of habit. So mm-hmm. I just stuck with that, but it was more volume training than just the absolute strength training, different techniques there.
So now with your son more involved in it and getting bigger, he's quite a bit bigger than what he was in high school. What advice do you have for him? I mean, he's wanting size. Where do you think the size comes from? Do you think it comes from the food, or do you think it comes from the weights?
I'd say a combination of both. My advice for him before his senior year was to come out here, honestly, to get his body prepared for that. he got injured his freshman year. So he took 2 years off, and that's quite a bit. Mm-hmm. Take off and just jump back into that. Well, he didn't listen to me then. He got injured again his senior year. So my advice to him was to come out here and listen to you, because he's wanting the strength,
right,
and the mass. So that's a little bit different than how I did it. He's got some good friends over there, though, at K-State that he likes working out with. Mm-hmm. So I'd say it was probably, I guess it's a combination of both. It depends on what you want, and you can kind of adapt that the older you get,
right,
as well, depending on how your body's responding to it.
The one thing he figured out while he was in school was the food. It seems like once he found that, if we could get every kid to eat like he ate, we'd have some monsters in there at high school. I tell you,
he's religious to it. I know he was talking to you for a while there, because he kind of picked it up like me. Mm-hmm. The sports, he missed his senior year of basketball, so he wanted to be competitive still athletically, and that's when I think he started speaking with you. And yeah, he did follow the calories and the food religiously for either weighing out portions and mm-hmm. things like that. And he jumped up pretty quick. So it can be done.
It can be done. That, to me, that's the hardest part, is the food. You're eating so much depending on what you want to do. If you want the size like he had, or he has, and like you had at one time, mm-hmm. it seems like you never quit eating.
Oh yeah. What's the calorie intake now? Well, they're kids anyway, so their metabolism's great. So I know the kids he works out with, they can't eat enough.
No, they
can't get the volumes in. He's got a kid now that's just really strong, but he's trying to push 165, 170 now, mm-hmm. And pulling a lot of weight at that weight. He can't keep enough calories in him. So a different body type.
Yeah. I've seen some pictures of him. He's a smaller body type, but he's burning through it, but he's really strong.
Yes, he's stout. I'm really impressed with what the kid can pull. Christian would have to tell you what he's pulling, but pretty impressive pound for pound.
Now, moving on from that a little bit, basketball is kind of, ever since I've known you, has been your passion. What drew you to basketball as opposed to football or something like that?
Well, my school, Gainesville, didn't have a football program. They cut it. I think it was my freshman year. We were terrible. And basketball was about it. So mm-hmm. They cut our track program too. So you had baseball and basketball, and my mother, where she was at, she was a single mother. My dad had passed away when I was in elementary school. So one sports son's all you get. So I picked basketball, and, played it a lot. I don't know if I was very good at it, but I played it a lot anyway, and had some good friends. Still have good friends through those relationships. So I enjoyed that sport a lot.
And that led into coaching. I know you helped me when I don't understand basketball at all, but I give coaching it a chance, and you helped me out quite a bit. So where did you kind of pick up that was your thing? I mean, you coached some really good teams, some really good youth teams. How did you make all that work?
Well, we had good kids here. We were blessed with good kids in Christian's age. Some really good athletes through there. Good families that were supportive too. Well, it'll go back to, we started Little League back in the day. First graders, we would be playing down in Butler, mm-hmm. and of course Christian wanted to play his first grade years. So, with my job, I'm on call, so I didn't know how that would work with coaching the kids if I had to go away whenever there's practice and things like that. So Mike Burris coached Drew. It was Drew's team too. Uh-huh. So I told Mike I'd help him out, and we played a few games down in Butler. We didn't score too much, so I decided, well, we probably ought to take this seriously and get these kids prepared. If we're going to do it, let's take it seriously. So the next year, Marcus Nisley, I talked to Marcus Nisley. Shout out to you, Marcus, if you're listening. And we took that on for several years, and had, like I said, some really good kids and some supportive family members, some good relationships you build there that I'll never forget. So it was a blessing to me. Mm-hmm. Hopefully I gave back to some of those kids, teach them the game, teach them how to play hard, and hopefully they got something out of it.
Well, they were pretty successful all the way through, even all the way through high school. So whatever you taught them at the lower level really seem to carry over. So the question that you see pop up a lot in youth sports, youth basketball, man or zone, what is better to teach them at that younger level?
Depends on if you have the athletes, my opinion. Zone, we did zone, Marcus and I did a lot, because you're trying to be competitive too, and zone's easier to teach the kids. We worked on a concept I hope that would transition over for our high school coaches, where they could teach man-to-man easier with the helpline. We were really religious on not overextending the half-court point, and that transitions over to your man-to-man. And Bruno teaches a good man-to-man here, the girls too. So I hope I helped out a little bit with those kids with a few of those concepts with, see ball, see man, and the movements. It's a little bit of a cheater defense with the elementary kids because you're packing it in. They don't have the range outside. So you can be a little more competitive there and, hide some kids that aren't as athletic as well, but still teach them the game and hopefully some concepts, again, that would transfer over to the man-to-man concepts.
Just, getting the ideas in there young, but not overexposing them to being beat or whatever in the man-to-man.
Yes.
Now, how are you always able to keep that so calm? You were a calm coach. You were able to get the boys to perform. Is that just your personality? Or that come with time?
You might have talked to some of the boys. I kind of got onto them. And the girls. I taught Elisa's grades as well. Same thing. Bunch of good kids there. Well, if they're not hustling, I'm not going to be calm. If you're going to play hard and play until you're out of gas, we'll get somebody else in. That was my concept there. If you're going to do it, put forth your best effort. Just like in here, you're going to get more out of it if you put forth your best effort. You're going to see more payoff. If somebody beats you, well, you can hang your hat on. That's the best I got.
Right.
So calm. Well, I guess maybe nicely again. Maybe he kept me calm. But we had good athletes too, and we had the major on a lot of teams around here with Christian's class. So, and they made it a lot easier staying calm because they'd build big leads for us.
Right. They were extremely athletic of a class.
Yeah.
Do you find that with the kids you work with and seeing some of the trouble they might find and the kids you coach in basketball, you think sports helps keep some of those kids out of the trouble they could find if they had time on their hands?
Definitely, if you have that supportive family. That's what I'm seeing in my career field is just the family unit is so broken. And these kids, and we have a lot of kids that are with grandparents or they're placed with great grandparents even because their parents are struggling with drug addiction or what have you. So if you have a supportive family unit, that helps out with the kids, but it helps keep them focused and part of a team concept too. I know at the high school level, they want all the participation they can get with these kids because it keeps them out of trouble. So I agree with that concept. It helps them. Plus, it wears them out. So they're too exhausted to get in trouble. But I agree with that. There's so much more than that sports and the team concept with team games being a part of a bigger concept. It's not just about you. You're there for your fellow teammates. There's a lot of concepts there with the team sports that I think would help out any kid. It's a good life lesson.
That was, you kind of led into what I was going to ask is, so the kids, the kids you work with, some of them have some pretty big issues. Where do you think that comes from? Does it come from the home? Does it come from the environment, I guess? Is it something that's just kind of in those kids that they can't outrun? Is it a combination of both? What attributes to a kid dealing with you as a juvenile officer as opposed to a kid that you never have to meet on that side of it?
Well, we see all different types. Hey, we were all kids.
Right.
We did stupid things. It's easier to get caught now. Everybody's got a phone with camera in their pocket. But generally, if you have those supportive family members, and if you have, when I meet with them, if you have a lot of people that come to the table, that's their support group. I can kind of tell, well, I'm not going to see this kid again because these folks here are going to keep this kid straight. It's where they don't have that support system that they're going to have struggles. They're going to have those the peer pressure or the lack of oversight, they're going to get in trouble, and they're going to struggle with, staying on the right path. So it's a combination of things, but environment obviously is a big thing. If you're in a part of a more nurturing environment, you're less likely to get in trouble. It's not always the case, but you're less likely, and you'll be less likely to repeatedly get into trouble.
That's what I had a question down there about that, So sounds like you've done it long enough. You can kind of walk in and know what to expect. But there's a kid that it's his first time. You kind of think he's going to get straight. Does he get treated different than a kid that's been there? You've been there 4 or 5 times and you just can't get him straight. I mean, is there kind of almost like we scared him enough, we think he's on the right path. And then this one, you have to take a totally different approach. How does that work?
Well, you have so many opportunities. We'll give kids opportunities we want to keep them out of the court system. Mm-hmm. Again, we've all been kids. We make mistakes. Depends on what the circumstances are, or what the incident is, the crime, if you will, that brings them before us. I have to deal with abused and neglect kids as well. We have to remove those kids from their parents' homes and place them in safer homes, be it foster parents, in foster care, or with relatives. Just removed a few today and had to place them with relatives. But with the delinquency, so that's easier to talk about the criminal offenses. We try to treat them the same every time, but there's only so many strikes you're going to get if we're trying to keep you out of the court system. But if we're working harder than you, at some point you've stopped listening to me. You're going to have to listen to the judge, and hopefully you will. Right. Because we try to keep them within the community, have wraparound services, and help them be successful within the community, help them pull their head out, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But if they're not going to listen, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So sometimes they have to go see the judge. Hopefully they'll listen to the judge. Otherwise, they'll be removed from the community to get back on the right path.
So at what point do you get involved? Is it a phone call from somebody? Is it a police interaction? Is it something that comes from the school? When does the courts decide, hey, we need to send you out there to see what's going on?
We get referrals or reports, obviously from law enforcement. Sheriff Anderson, his folks send them to us. We cover the whole county. Mm-hmm. So we got several schools in the county, anywhere from Hume to Ballard is in our district, in our jurisdiction. We get them from law enforcement. We'll get them from schools as well, but that's not going to be the criminal cases. Majority of the reports we get from school attendants. We can get them from family members as well. If a kid's running away from home and not returning home, they'll call law enforcement, but we get calls from the parents as well. And that generates a report to our office and a meeting in our office as well.
I wondered what that took. I'd never had to deal with a juvenile officer in high school. I probably got close a few times, but I never had to. So I didn't know what it took before you were asked to become involved. So that kind of helps, I guess, somebody understand from the outside looking in. Now, the other thing we probably have in common more so than sports or weights is conspiracy theories.
Okay, yeah.
So what is your favorite conspiracy theory?
Boy, there's so many, isn't there, Stephen?
There's quite a few, yes.
Boy, I don't know. I have to narrow it down. You got the political ones, but I don't know. I couldn't narrow them down. There's several I like.
I don't know that I could, I don't know that I could either. There's just so many, and you could jump from topic to topic, but I haven't had anybody on to talk about this one. Do you think the Federal Reserve should be done away with?
Are you talking about the gold standard compared to...
Going back to the gold standard like Kennedy tried?
I had to research that a little bit more. Did Nixon do that for us?
Well, you start dropping into that happened. We went to the Federal Reserve back in the 1800s. There was a fight for it. And most people didn't want it, but it got passed because what you're doing is you're allowing an outside bank to control your money, to control your interest rates, to essentially dictate to you what you're going to do policy-wise because you owe them money. Mm-hmm. And then Kennedy went to go back to the silver standard. And then right then, during his presidency, is when it could have been ratified to go back to the silver standard. And obviously he was assassinated, so we stayed with the Federal Reserve. Yeah, exactly. So we stayed with the Federal Reserve. Mm-hmm.
Is this a second federal banking system, though? 1911, 1913? Didn't they do away with it and then they established it again? Am I wrong on that?
And you could be right. I don't know. I want to say that it's always been somewhat under the control of Bank of England. And then you got J.P. Morgan, the Rothschilds, everybody involved.
The big bankers.
The big bankers. And with Kennedy wanting to do away with it and have us stand independent again, that caused quite the stir. So I didn't know how much research you had done on that one.
Enough to not know much about it. Of course, I'm not a banker either. The Federal Reserve with printing money, and they charge us interest for every dollar they print for us. I don't know if I like that concept.
Right.
It's not government owned, it's private Western Central Bank, correct? That's named the Federal
Reserve to keep people from looking into it. Yeah. Give it a name like Federal Reserve, people just think you control your own money.
Yeah, so I would prefer we, the people, to have more control over our own currency. If the gold standard did that, I'd be all for it. I don't agree, though, with the more you print, the more you charge us for the money you print, because we're printing a lot right now, and with inflation, you see where that's at.
So you could jump to the next conspiracy theory then. Is it a push for the Great Reset?
I've heard the Great Reset thrown around a lot. You're talking about the world. Yeah,
if you devalue the currency and send hyperinflation in and crash an economy.
Yes. You're talking, create a problem so you can suggest a solution.
Right.
Is that the
kind of the same deal?
Yeah. You think that's conspiracy, but I've heard that term going around a lot. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. I hate to step out there on too far of a limb, but it seems like that is the setup with the money we've printed in the last 2 years.
Because they're not stopping.
No, there's no intention to stop. And then look where we are with inflation right now. Then if it sends us into a recession, it would do exactly what the conspiracy theorists said they were going to do 2 years ago.
For the folks out there, the Great Reset, talking about one world government, new world order stuff. Is that the way you understand it?
Yeah, pretty much. Everybody's got to be equal. You can't go to a one world government if one government is and the people are rich or living in a one world environment. Yeah, everybody has to be a third world country. And Mexico has to be the same as the United States. It's the same as China. It's the only way people will join. You wouldn't join a club and give everything away.
To lower your standard of living.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I can see that. But yeah, 2030, Agenda 2030.
Yeah, you start getting into a lot of different things that way. Usually on the show, we don't get too far into conspiracy theories.
Yeah, I don't know if we're ready for that. Stephen and I have talked a lot on the phone about some stuff that's probably not appropriate for the podcast.
You could really show you're crazy pretty fast on here.
Yeah. So again, I'm not a banker, but I can see with the Great Reset, we've heard that term being thrown around more with just in the mainstream. Klaus Schwab, Agenda 2030. You can see how they would get there. And like you said, you have to destroy the economy before people are going to buy into it, make them desperate enough where they will own nothing and be happy.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And then you just keep people working, keep people paying taxes.
Debt slaves.
Yeah. That's, you're working for a factory and you don't even realize it.
Yeah.
Wake up every morning and go to work so you can pay your taxes.
Well, with independent wealth, there comes freedom.
Right. And that's what capitalism has given to us. So if you could do away with that through a reset.
Socialism.
Yeah, you could go more to a friendly socialism.
Yeah,
then
it's just
you could
not been tried right?
Right, exactly. I mean, every country that's really tried it on any major scale, it's not worked, but they just didn't do it right.
They just didn't do it right. I would question that.
They didn't understand Marx the way the people now understand Marx, right?
Exactly. It just wasn't implemented right. So we're told. So eventually
we'll get it right, and it'll be a utopia.
Do you trust them to do that? Whoever they are.
Whoever they may be. I don't know. It's not. When you deal with people and that much power, I don't know that you could ever trust anybody, could you?
Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know that anybody is equipped to handle that much power.
We have to have checks and balances. That's what our system's built on.
Yeah, I mean,
I hope it still can function.
Look at Venezuela and some of the stuff that was, that's the last country that kind of fell away from communism, and
Yes.
their economy was trash. It showed people pushing wheelbarrows full of money to go buy bread because their money wasn't worth anything.
Throwing it in the the stove for heating source. What was that? That was over in some of those European countries when inflation was out of control after World War II.
I think in Venezuela they were actually using drugs to buy stuff because it was worth more than their money.
I don't want our society to get to that point.
Well, there's plenty of drugs available, so I'm sure. So
Yeah.
might be easier to get your hands on.
Yeah.
So going back to basketball before we lose everybody on a conspiracy theory.
Let's change gears there. We might edit that out.
Yeah, we'll just switch back. That way we don't lose everybody on our nonsense. But what's the best lesson you've learned from playing basketball?
From playing basketball?
Or playing and coaching, both of them.
I would like to just think that hard work, for kids, you're going to get success out of it with what you put into it. Again, whatever you try, be it weights here, if you set your mind to it, you come up with a plan and stick with it, you're going to see good results. Be that in the team sports or individual sports, you're going to see results. So I think that's the life lesson there is you get out of whatever you're trying, depending on what you put into it. That's real important.
That's something we always tried to convince our players of, hard work always seems to pay off. Not in every situation. There's different things that apply, but for the most part, it seems like hard work will always be recognized and pay off.
Yeah. Well, there's God-given talent too. I mean, if we're talking basketball, that kid that's 6'10", you can't coach that natural talent like that. That's just God-given,
Right.
genetic lottery. But if you want to improve, that 6'10" kid isn't trying harder. You're trying harder than them. You're going to improve at a better rate. Look at it that way.
Yeah, not every kid is going to make it to college. Not every kid is going to make it to the NBA. There are genetics and physical limitations that do come in there. But at your lower levels, little league up through junior high and into high school, hard work should get you some recognition and some time on the court.
Yes, and that's the life lesson too. Whenever your career's over, Christian, he's moved on. He likes the hard work. He's
still working hard.
Else, that he's gravitated to, and he enjoys that payoff. So that's the life lesson. Hey, it's a cutthroat world out there. You're going to have to separate yourself out, and I'd want to hire somebody that's putting in 100% over somebody that may put in 70%. Right?
Yeah, and being able to work with other people,
of course,
and get the job done at the. You got to be able to function in a team, even if it is at work.
Yeah, and that goes back to our team concept,
right?
Too. How well do you fit in? And those team concepts we're talking about with Little League. Hopefully, we've taught them that, and it wasn't just about the win. There was a lot of different life lessons in there that hopefully we've taught them through the process. Hopefully.
Or, sometimes maybe they didn't learn it right then, but later on in life, the light bulb goes off.
Yes, hopefully. And same with you. I mean, you've coached a lot too with all those kids. You coached my girl for years in softball too, and you still see those families and those kids. You hope you've made an impression. And
it was a good one. Sometimes I wonder if it was a good one or not, but
at least had good experiences with them. So I'll say that
it's a growing deal for the coach and the players. How you kind of view it when you first start coaching to after you have 10, 12 years of coaching.
Well, yeah,
it definitely changes. Yeah,
you do things differently than that first 1 or 2 years.
And then you had Marcus and I had Kenny, and Kenny was the same way. Kenny kept everything calm, and there was a lot of growth there. When you can stay calm and just understand the game from the kid's perspective, it changes the way you do a lot of things.
Yes. Yeah, it's about the kids. It's about growth. Yeah,
seeing the improvement, and when the improvement is not there, fixing it in practice, trying to make it better there, and then showing up to the game again and trying again.
Yes.
I tried my hand at Little League basketball, and that was not my thing at all. I just didn't see the game. And I think to be a good coach, you have to see the game, I think, I talked to Coach Webb from Butler, the football coach, and you could talk to him and just understand that he had like an aha moment that he understood football on a different level than your average person at that point. Did you ever have one of those? Did you ever have an aha moment with basketball where the game just kind of opened up? You could see the math, you could see everything and how it needed to be?
I guess with experience, of course, we took a lot of kids, not just from this area. Christian played on a traveling team with other kids, and that was a great experience too, kind of like your girls you did with softball. You got to play with a bunch of Butler kids that were kind of rivals, but now they're friends. So
right.
It was really cool. Kids from different areas as well that they're still, I'm sure, on, buddies on Snapchat or whatever they use now. So, but that's a good experience there as well. The aha moment, I think it changes when you're dealing with little kids and working with kids that get into high school because, they're getting different commitments. Their time is a little bit different, especially with basketball. I tried to get some teams together, sophomore, junior year of Christian. Well, these kids are working. They've got jobs, they got insurance, they got gas, car payments, whatever it may be. So the aha moment there was, well, we're not teaching just specific fundamentals as much as just understanding of the game, situational understanding. Okay, it's 2-3. Where's that weak at? 2-3 zone. Just overall trying to teach them, not dribble with your head up and looking for your teammates. You're teaching different things at that point. Do they understand the situation in the game? So those were the aha moments when they got older. I'm not going to teach you anything about these things here, left-handed layups and things like that when they were little kids. It's different things you have to teach them, more understanding of the game, the situation, maybe.
Yeah, with the overall goal is if something would happen, they should know the game enough that they can coach themselves.
Oh, exactly. I mean, you got kids that have, 100, 150 basketball games under their belt. You should have a pretty easy job over there.
Right.
It's at the end of the game. You got a 5-point lead. We're in no hurry. 2 minutes left. They can come chase you, and it opens things up. I shouldn't have to tell them that. They should already know they've had 150, games under their belt. So it should get easier.
It should. Yeah, they should get to where they're thinking a couple plays ahead. They see what's open. For me, it was, I sat on a bucket a lot in a dugout watching a lot of softball and seeing how it all developed. And then once I saw how it developed, it made it easier to teach the girls. So then they knew how to run the bases. Once the girls run the bases, your job's way easier because you can watch multiple things because hey, we've got a bunt on, we're at first, shortstop's going to second, third base is crashing. My girl's going to be here at third base.
You don't have to micromanage.
I don't have to micromanage, and they understand and they're watching it and they're taking the extra stuff. Well, now you can watch different parts of the game. The strategy changes as the kids know it, but getting that conveyed ain't always the easiest thing in the world. It takes a lot of reps.
Yes. Yeah, you're exposing them to that, and you learn from successes. I learn from my mistakes because I remember them because it embarrasses me more than my successes. So those are teaching moments both ways. When you haven't had success, that's a teaching moment. You make mistakes, it's a teaching moment. So if you can frame it right.
And that was where I struggled when I was first starting out coaching. And as I got older, I think I got better with it. If they make a mistake trying to make something happen because they thought they saw something, that's part of learning the game. The game's not bigger than their knowledge of it. So yeah, you get an out here, you get an out there because a girl was trying something that she thought she saw. You got to handle that with a grain of salt. Hey, I'd rather her be pushing and get thrown out than be stuck on a base and we needed her run.
I'd say that just the flow of the game,
right?
Pushing the boundaries, and if it didn't work out, it didn't work out. Now if it's just boneheaded stupid,
yeah, it's
different.
But you don't. Yeah, you can't teach them that and then be upset when they try it too, I guess. And I probably struggled with that way too much in the beginning.
I did too, younger, because, we're naive ourselves. We don't have a lot of experience either. So the more you're on the bucket or on the bench, the more you get comfortable with those things too. Take things in stride.
Yeah. And, I've got a lot of girls thrown out trying stuff and had them be upset at me, and they should have been. And then I've had girls that pushed it a little bit and got thrown out on their own. And I might have been a little upset in the moment, but at the end of the day, I'm glad that they felt comfortable enough to know that they could make that push. I don't know.
That's important.
Right.
Because you don't want them to play timid. You want them to read and react, right? Because that's what you're trying to do, but they're out there.
Yeah.
So the game, they'll see the game quicker, and if they're just reacting, muscle memory.
Right.
That seems to be a more natural way of playing the game. Softball, basketball, whatever it is.
Because you can drill all you want, but until you're in a game or set up a game-like situation, they don't actually get to see all that stuff carry over. Situational. I mean, you can set it up at practice the best you can, but you need to see what it's like against somebody else some too.
But is it game tempo or game anxiety, game level of intensity?
Exactly. Yeah, you'll never get that without being in a game.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in the wins and losses sometimes.
Yeah.
And forget, hey, this really doesn't matter. Yeah. High school, when they get up there, or college, wherever it is they end up, that's when it's going to matter.
Yeah.
So I know I wasn't the great at managing that in the beginning. Hopefully people say, hey, he got a little better as he got older.
Better with a few years under your belt. Hopefully they said that about me too. I don't know.
So with your youngest up through the Little League and starting to get it up into high school, are you done with your Little League days? I'm
still on the board because I feel like there's several parent coaches that help my kids out. You, Steven, Reynolds, Jeremiah is still probably one of Christian's favorite coaches. I like him better than he did me coaching.
I'm sure he did, but yeah.
I feel like I should still try to help out with those kids. I enjoy seeing it on Saturday. Got good folks on the board. S. Price, Reed, good people. Stevens, they know who they are, and I'm just there to try to help out. So we can pay it forward, if you will, for the next generation to come up. It's nice to see. You just see little things that the kids are doing that you can tell the coaches are working with them on. And when you see them try that in the game, it's really exciting to me. Even if it's not successful, hey, a kid's going in there left-handed, and this little third grader trying to,
she's trying.
Yeah. That's exciting to see. It excites me. So I feel like my youngest is a freshman now. Hopefully she can help Bruno and those girls out. But I still feel like I need to try to pay it back, for the next generation coming up. And I enjoy it. I enjoy seeing the kids and trying to play the game.
Well, you have one gone at K-State. You got another that's a senior. And you got one that's a freshman. So what are your plans when you're an empty nester? You're not very far away.
Well, I don't know. I guess get back to lifting more. Maybe I'll come over here.
Well, I didn't know if maybe you'd pick up more on the coaching or if you would find something else to do in life.
Well, it depends, I guess, on where the kids are at. You've got one that's been out a couple years now. Depends on where their life leads them. Depends on where Christian goes and where my wife tells me I need to go. I guess you know how it is. So I try to stay in, I guess, the Little League just to, again, help those folks out. I don't know, maybe get back into lifting a little bit more. We'll see. It depends on how the elbows hold up.
Elbows and knees.
The older you get, the pump's different. It's like that's joint pain.
That's not what I was looking for.
So you got to work out a little smarter the older you get.
Now you've been around bodybuilding quite a while. You have family that's into it. Now Christian's into it. Would you push somebody that was looking for something to do? Would you push them into that as a good future way to stay in shape, or do you think there's better ways to do it?
Well, it depends on how competitive they want to be. They want to be really competitive. It's not healthy,
right?
The natural, if you will. There's a payoff to it because you feel better about yourself. If you miss a workout, you feel terrible about it. So it keeps you honest with yourself, but you're chasing that feeling of accomplishment, right? So I'd push folks into that if they're committed to it, because it's a good payoff for you. People chase it. It's like their drug, that addiction. Feeling that that euphoria after a workout, right? You know what I'm talking about. Or if you've pulled a new max for yourself, how do you explain that? That's an accomplishment that, it's a one-on-one sport. It's you versus the weight. So those are huge payoffs that, I think is healthy for people, focused right. So, yeah, I think I would. Or powerlifting, whatever it may be, it keeps people focused on something that's healthy. Should be healthy if you do it right. Now you can, with anything in excess, it can turn into unhealthy too.
So that, I guess, would lead into another question. You were pretty good size when I first met you. You were in the gym a lot, eating a lot. The best I know, all the conversations we've had, you were natural.
Yeah, I had to be.
Was there ever that temptation to not be?
Before my career in law enforcement, there was. When you're younger and you're taking, you're more likely to take, risks. Mm-hmm. Hey, I worked out with kids in college that they got onto cycles and their max is going up 40, 60, 70 pounds in a few weeks. I'd like to find a different workout partner,
Right.
There wasn't whenever I got in my career because it's too hypocritical.
Yeah, you're dealing with kids telling them not to be on drugs, and you're running tests
because it's illegal. So there absolutely wasn't any whenever I got in my career. But when you're younger, and you don't have those responsibilities, of course, there's those temptations. Didn't do it. Absolutely didn't do it. Didn't do it.
Sound like Ross.
My maxes would have went up. But it was tough working out with people that were doing that.
Oh yeah,
I had to change workout partners a few times because of that.
It's undeniable. Those guys are going to get stronger. They're going to get bigger. And I can see where being young and doing it, the temptation would be there. You turn on TikTok and that's half of what it is. Half the TikToks on the weightlifting stuff's all talking about using PEDs. So
what's the next best thing?
Yeah. Where do you go from there?
And I have some family that went down that road and they're not healthy now. So in the long run, it's not the healthy choice.
Yeah, if you want to win an IBF title, it's going to be about the most unhealthy thing you could possibly do to get there.
Yeah, look at Coleman if we want to get into that.
Right.
And what those folks had to do with, it's not just the steroids, but the growth hormones and everything else. The physique has just gotten so...
And then when the insulin started coming in, it really started changing everything.
Yeah, then you're getting in really unhealthy practices. So you look at those bodybuilders in the 90s and where they at now. A lot of them, they're not very healthy.
Or if they did make it through, with the exception of like Cutler and some of those guys that are still massive, a lot of them don't even look anything close to what they look like in their prime. They didn't get to keep that muscle.
Cutler was 320 in his prime, 5'11".
Yeah, he wasn't near as tall as he was wide.
Yes. So, and have you seen that it's on YouTube where he worked out with Brian Shaw? Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Cutler? It's interesting, the power lifters with the old body.
It's a totally different animal.
Just the level of weight those power lifters can move is pretty impressive. Of course, this is the elite of the elite.
And you're talking about giants, you're talking about, what is Shaw, 6'8"?
6'8", 400.
Right.
Yeah. So,
but he seems to be one of the nicest guys you could ever meet when you watch his stuff.
I'd like to meet him. Wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Just to shake a hand of someone that's pulled that much weight would be kind of interesting.
Did you ever watch their show when they had it on the History Channel?
Is that the one with Nick, Robert, and
Eddie Hall?
Eddie Hall. I've watched more of it now lately. Yes, kind of interesting. They seem to be pretty. They don't take themselves too seriously when they're out in public, so it's kind of entertaining.
I always thought the best part of the show was when they went to the restaurant. Whatever restaurant they went to, and they would ask them, well, how many chicken wings do you have in the back? Or, they get 4 steaks, or what those guys eat in a day.
That is pretty amazing. They're still doing it at Shaw and Eddie. I think their new shows. They went order this 9-pound sandwich and see if they can finish it. So they're still massive human beings. So, but yeah, that was interesting. The Scotland one, is that the one?
The Scotland one's one of them. They went to Cody, Wyoming.
That one I don't.
They went into a restaurant there. Everywhere they went into a restaurant. They essentially those 4 guys bought the kitchen out.
Yeah, and just seeing the reaction of just the people in the background when they serve them what they're eating. Yeah, it's kind of pretty amazing.
So as far as strongmen go, you have Half Thor, and he kind of brought it a little bit more mainstream when he was on Game of Thrones, The Mountain on Game of Thrones, and kind of thrust those big guys back into the spotlight. I think, in the 80s, strongman was really big. It kind of died out a little bit, and then it's made a resurgence. He worked with Stan Efferding quite a bit. Have you watched much on the vertical diet?
I have
different
not.
things Stan Efferding talked about.
I have not.
That's pretty interesting. He did quite a few seminars over in, I guess, Iceland.
Mm-hmm. Because strongman in Iceland, there's a huge history there. They're ate up with it there.
Oh yeah, you get them big Vikings over there, man. They love it.
Yes, it's really popular sport in Iceland. Yeah.
No, but listening to Stan Efferding talk and work with those guys and watch them maintain their size without the big belly that goes along with being a strong man. A lot of those guys, like when Mark Henry, he became a wrestler, Eddie Hall. Some of those guys are probably carrying a little bit more weight than what you would expect that's not needed, and watching them starting to cut down.
Yeah, because didn't Eddie fight Thor?
He did, yeah.
Thor beat him, right? I think
it was a decision, yeah, and he got beat.
Yeah, Eddie, what's he, 6'3", and he didn't have the God-given gift of height to pack on the mass and the leverage points, but what was it, 2017 when he beat Thor, and there was a big controversy over it?
Yeah, over the half squats they were running.
Was it the barrel?
Yeah.
The barrel military press. Yeah, so I've watched a few things on that since, and Eddie had him. He could have done a few more reps, I think, on that. But Eddie had to. I watched a recent YouTube video on him. I guess not. Do we get into powerlifting?
Oh, we're just a strong man. I don't know.
He mentioned he doesn't have the size to put on that pounds, so he just had to put on the pounds, and I think he got to like 375, 380. Is that what he was?
I'm sure he was. I don't know the exact final that he got to. I know he's cut a lot since he decided to retire.
But he was pushing the health boundaries too.
Yeah, your heart can only pump so much blood.
Yeah. So he was pushing. Of course, he pulled 1,100 pounds off the ground too.
Yeah.
So, and if you've seen that episode, I'd watch it on YouTube. That's really entertaining. The man went blind pulling that weight.
Well, and they didn't give him the one because he dropped it.
Okay.
And then he had to go back, I think a year later, and do it again.
Maybe the one I'm seeing is one where he successfully did it. He had sued.
Yeah, he
fell down. Yeah, and they had to take him to the doctor.
Yeah, he's dang near bleeding out of his eyes.
Yes, so he pushed the limits of the human capacity, I guess if you will. Pretty fascinating what the human body can do, If it's pushed right and given the right food and supplements, it can do way more than what anybody ever. It can do way more than what your normal person would ever think it would be. Yes. Of course, those are extreme examples, too. Those are the superior athletes in their field.
Exactly.
Too. But it's still pretty fascinating to see. Again, they have to work hard at it. And the nutrition to go along with it to maintain that weight.
Yeah, all those guys are running nutritionists, and that seems to be, when you start looking into elite athletes now, they're listening to them talk, they all run essentially the same programs. None of them's lifting really any different than somebody else is lifting, but the food is where they say that the edge.
So the workouts are the same through the
all decades. Yeah.
Well,
they may have changed over the decades, but right now I would say the Chiefs are probably not doing a workout that's way different than the Bengals or the Rams. All those strength coaches all went to the same spot. They all went to the same school. Their theories are probably very similar. It's what can they change on the nutrition side to give them the edge. So you see a push towards being a vegan, or you see a push towards a carnivore diet. So I think in the next few years, diets will be way more dialed in for those guys.
Not the extremes, if you will, on that.
Yeah, and they're finding out what really works, Obviously, there's a big push to the vegan side here in the last few years. Will it hold up to the diet that they've been eating all these years with meat? Who knows? I don't know enough about it to know
I know if it tastes good, that's about it.
That's pretty much it. You want to eat us for what we do. We just want to eat something that tastes good. But, obviously Tom Brady's, there's something in his diet that he's doing.
What's he, 46, 45?
45 or 46.
Yeah, he has to do things to the extreme because your metabolism changes, and he's still in good shape. I don't think he's lost any velocity on his throw, has he?
Probably not much. It wasn't the decline like we saw with Peyton Manning.
Yeah, Manning fell off a cliff, but he had that surgery.
Right.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I've been waiting for it through the years. They keep extending his contracts. We're like, he's going to drop off the cliff, off the edge like Peyton, but it hasn't happened yet. So,
I was watching a podcast the other day with Jordan Burroughs. Wrestled at Nebraska, went on to be, I think, a 4-time world champion and an Olympic gold medalist wrestler. And they kind of asked him what changed. And he's like, I learned my diet. I learned what my body needed to do, food-wise, and everything just worked out. And I think dealing with, you had one that was trying to put on weight. I have a lot of them in here that are trying to put on weight. When do you think the school system has to change to feed those kids more food?
Public school system?
Yeah. I think in my mind, before you answer it, I think we're almost more concerned with sending backpacks of food home with kids on the weekend than we are actually feeding them while they're there. But this is outside looking in.
Well, I don't know, because that's so much government subsidy that's controlled by the Fed so much, isn't it?
Yeah, and Michelle Obama had a lot to do, I think, with where we are now.
That was a big push when those years. You look at the collegiate athletes, they're not eating at the regular diner, are they? They
got a training table they go to.
Yeah, and they're told what to eat. Lineman, you got to eat this, So I think it'd probably come down to the almighty dollar, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think it probably does. It's just...
It's not cheap to eat healthy.
It's not cheap to eat healthy, and to get the calories they need. It's just... I wonder if we worry so much about them over the weekend, which, kids need to eat. It's amazing that in a country like ours, we're sending food home.
Yes, the wealthiest country in the world.
But we have to. If we would feed them more while they were there, that may go a lot further than a few meals on the weekend.
Have you talked to some of the kids you've had in here? You got football seasons just done. Were they getting enough?
That's for the biggest.
And even just the off-season work, you're tearing that body down. You need that nutrition to build it up. I don't think it's coming from the lunch table at school because they're not focusing on sports. They're focusing on the overall student population, right?
Right. And some of it I do feel like you have to put on the kids' shoulders too. When you get into high school, you're starting to mature a little bit. If you can afford it, you should have stuff in your backpack. You shouldn't go hungry. Assuming you can afford it, assuming your financial needs are met. They do serve breakfast and they do serve lunch. Are you taking advantage of both of those on top of what you're bringing?
That's true.
Because you look at a kid, kids are bad about not eating breakfast. Then they go all morning. They eat an early lunch, I think. I think they eat around 11.
Yeah, for the most part, so they can get them done by the half days, right?
Right. So then you eat a 600-calorie lunch. Then you don't eat again, and you go to practice, whether that be football, volleyball, basketball. Well, you hit your practice at how much of a deficit?
Yeah, and you're trying to tear down to build up.
Right. And no matter what you eat at home that night, there's no way you're going to crawl out of the deficit you were in from the day.
Yes, you've already taken the hit.
So you wake up the next morning further in the hole than you were the day before.
Yeah. Yes. Well, it's something. Do the bigger schools? I mean, we're from these little small schools. At the bigger school, 5A schools, do they have a different system than we have here?
It'd be interesting to know because I don't.
This is all I've experienced in small schools.
Yeah, I don't deal with a 5A school. I want to say that a lot of those bigger schools, I can't hardly imagine that some of your bigger schools in Johnson County don't have a little more food to give those kids. But they also got the tax base.
Definitely. That we don't have. But we're here for a reason. But still, like our small community.
Yeah. There's other perks that go along with it, so the kids have to figure out a way
to adapt to that.
And I think a teacher and a coach is supportive of a kid that is trying to get his calories in during the day.
I don't think they're going to prevent him from eating.
Right, I don't think so either. So
as long as it's not disruptive. But you and I know that it's not 2 big meals a day. It's multiple 5 meals throughout the day is the best ratio, and that's kind of hard to do. It's hard for me to do in a work day.
Yeah, get into a microwave if it's something that needs to be heated up or whatever the case may be. So yeah, you got to bring something that's ready to go as soon as you open your backpack up or whatever, ready to go.
Yes, and again, it's expensive. The protein's expensive, and supplements are really high too. So to get that extra stuff, you're going to pay.
Yeah, trying to find cheap ways to put on size. You can't carry a gallon of milk around with you all day at school.
I don't think Christian's doing that, although he likes the chocolate milk over there. He's raved about that. I did try it. It was pretty good.
I've seen a lot of guys talk about that, a gallon of milk a day.
Yeah.
But you got to have a refrigerator. You got to have a way to ration it out, you know.
Yeah, you're not going to carry around campus all day with you.
No.
Class to class. I guess you could.
You could, but it might not taste very good at the end of the day.
Yeah. Full of fridge around with you.
Have a bucket of rice and some milk at every class. I'm sure that'd be pretty good. You spent some time, I'm sure, watching the football boys this year. What'd you think?
I was really proud of him. I told that to Coach Davis today. I was really proud of what that staff did for the kids, what the kids did for this community. Well, I was here 20 years ago when the other team went. They're our age now, right? So that's something. Of course, we wanted to be a little more competitive game, but hey, they can hold their heads up high. They did a great thing, and we'll be talking about it for years. So I'm so proud of those kids and the staff. Congratulate them for the accomplishments they had. That's because let's face it, it's a tough road to get there. They've accomplished a lot getting there and getting to see the kids play on that field. I was just so excited and happy for them because I know a lot of those kids, coached a lot of them in basketball too. So, and to see the families out there too is pretty exciting.
It was a lot of fun. I got asked to do the prep cast this year. That was a first for me.
Yes, how'd you like that? I did it with Matt a few years ago. Well, last year a little bit for basketball, and they got a neat setup. Brock's really good on the cameras. I
ran the camera up top. Barack ran a camera on the field. Lance and Matt ran all the production stuff, the commercials, and
I think they did a good job. Matt, Lance, Brock. I'm amazed at what they do there. I was really impressed with their system, and you're doing that a little bit here, so you can see what it takes. I think they do a really good job.
It was way more difficult than I ever thought it would be. Having notes, having something to talk about, trying to get an interview with the opposing coach. Some coaches will give it to you, some coaches won't. Trying to get in and talk to Davis every week, where by the time you're at the end of the season, you're asking him a question, he answered.
How to keep it fresh.
Yeah.
And they're keeping some cards to their chest.
Yeah, they
That's
are.
appropriate. And,
what can they trust you with, and how far in depth do they want to go? Asking a coach's game plan or keys to the game every week. Well, somebody like Davis, it's the same every week.
He's going to vanilla it down. I understand it.
He's not, line of scrimmage. He's going to tell you the line of scrimmage every week, which every coach is. So, my interviewing skills aren't the greatest. So learn to come up with questions, try to keep it fresh, try to have something to talk about. We beat some teams pretty good this year. So that second half, what are you going to talk about?
Yeah.
So learning how to ration out your notes and try to have something there to talk about in the second half on a blowout, running a camera, and then still trying to do the color commentating. It was way different than what I ever anticipated.
It is challenging. I mean, hats off to those guys. I think they do a good job, but when you're on that side of the mic, so to speak, again, with the blowout in the second half, it's the little things, I guess, you focus on, right?
Yeah, or something that you talk to a kid that week about. And interviews, you want your notes to be really extensive and not use them, as opposed to not have nothing and just trying to find something to talk about.
Well, I helped Matt out whenever we had COVID, and I really, again, paying back because, we shut down. We couldn't have but 2 two fans in
Right.
in basketball. So that production's the only way my family got to see my kids play. So I really appreciate those guys, providing that opportunity for the community. So again, wanted to pay back. Hopefully I added a little something to a couple of his shows and, took the weight off of him a little bit too. But again, like you on the other side of the mic, color commentating, I guess you got to practice a little bit. When you practice, you get better at it. But I think they do a good job, and I appreciate that service. Our community should appreciate them too, because a lot of folks, couldn't get out during COVID, or the winter months with the folks, getting out to see a game. They can just turn it on and watch it. So it's kind of nice.
Yeah, or it's really cold, or the game now where the football games are. Some of those games are 2.5 hours away. People just don't want to make that drive, and I can't blame them. I wouldn't either.
Yes, so it's a great service for the community. So I think they do a good job.
I enjoyed it, and then I added on to it this year with the podcast, bringing in a couple players every week and talking to them. And every player that came in was extremely friendly, courteous. It was a really good time getting to know so many of them. I have so many of them that come into the gym that I really know and work with, but this opened it up to where by the time the season was done, we had talked to every starter, and then we're starting to get into almost quite a few of the second string guys.
Yeah, it's about the kids too,
right?
Bringing it back to the kids and giving them that opportunity the people to get to know the kids. The kids. A lot of these kids you coach, you'd like to share them. With other people so they can see those personalities, or the fans get to see what Coach Davis, some of those personalities he had to deal with, and
exactly
how much fun he had. I'm sure he had a lot of fun with a lot of those kids, ornery as they may be sometimes, but overall,
they were all great kids that come in here, and I couldn't ask for a better setup than get them in here early. Usually early on a Saturday morning, so they would show up and eat some breakfast and answer questions, and
you get to know them.
I got to know them, and without a paper anymore and everything's online, the distance between the community and the football players, unless you have a kid on that team, you don't know them. So it was kind of a way to maybe open that door up.
That's true. That's true for people, and the older your kids get, the more your distance from the next generations coming up because you haven't had those experiences with them. So gives the community an opportunity to get to know the kids a little bit.
Yeah, you're only there for a short time, depending on how many kids you have. I had two, but they were both in high school about the same time. Going to be very similar to yours.
Yes.
You had about an 8-year stretch in there where you're going to know most of the high school, but before and after that.
Yeah, a few years before, a few years after, there's some overlap. And after that, you don't have those connections. So, you got to get to know the kids a little bit. It's kind of nice.
And you see them out and you don't know them, and you can form an opinion one way or another and have that not be anywhere close to what it truly is.
Usually isn't.
Right. You see them on a football field or they do something that maybe you didn't like or agree with. Well, that may not be the kid that they are. The emotions just kind of got a hold of them for a second. We might judge them a little quick, where maybe a podcast where they can come in and sit down and talk, kind of feel out a better opinion.
That's true. There's a lot of emotions, especially in the football. So get them out of the pads and pick their brain on whatever questions you're asking them sometimes.
Yeah, and then see where they go with it. Some kids are really chatty and some kids aren't, and that's okay. But they all showed up, and it was a great season.
But this is also good experience for them as well. Just the communication skills. With these generations, the generation now, it's texting. A lot of texting. Our old generation, it's this right here. So it's a good skill to have, just to be able to communicate. Verbally communicate with people rather than just through text. Maybe I'm just old school on that.
Eventually, you're going to have to sit down and talk to somebody.
Eventually, you would think.
A job interview, or in college, trying to get in a certain class or something like that. Eventually, you got to sit down and be able to communicate why you should get the job or why you should be in this class.
How are you going to set yourself apart? Communication skills is pretty important in most fields, you would think.
And then you got to go to work, and you got to work for somebody that, in most cases, you have to be able to talk to and understand what they're saying and be able to talk back in a way that they can understand what you're saying.
Yeah, work through issues.
I was always construction, but I know before I made the move over to maintenance, that gap had gotten bigger. It was getting harder to communicate. It seems like with the younger generation, because you said the texting and all that stuff, it's just a different way they grew up. And I think the podcast helped me a little bit close that gap. I don't know. You deal with a lot of kids. Do you see a difference in how they communicate now as opposed to when you started?
Well, I see him with just a little snapshot,
Right.
When we're talking about certain subjects. So I see it, I think, with just my kids and how they communicate with their friends. It's totally different. Like, you're from the generation of cruising on Friday night to go see your buddies, These kids don't know what that is, They don't have to cruise. A lot of the kids I know, they don't even want to get their license. They don't even care. That doesn't matter to them. How big was that when
we were kids? You couldn't wait.
You couldn't wait, so you could go, ask your girlfriend out on a date at night. I've seen a change in that. The desire just to get their licenses dropped a lot, which is, I kind of blame the social media, because you don't have to have a car to go visit with your buddies or your girlfriend or whatever. You can just text anytime, 24/7. Now, we had phones, folks. We're not that old,
I didn't.
Did you have to push the button or the roll the dial?
Oh, in the house?
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, we had a house phone. I thought you meant like a cell phone.
We had
a house phone.
Yeah,
we had both.
Yeah,
at
we
different
didn't have
times.
like home pigeons or whatever.
No.
We're not that old.
That was our parents' generation.
Yeah. But it took a little bit, more to communicate with each other. So
and if they weren't home, you just didn't get to talk to them.
You didn't get to talk to them. We had a party line in my house. You know what that is?
Yeah.
Yeah, and my neighbor, bless his soul, he worked for the phone company, and when I got the girlfriend, he got us the second line real quick.
Oh, I bet so.
Get through. But no, just that generation, I have noticed that, just the desire just to get a license, you reach the right age, has dropped down a lot with the kids I work with.
Do you see that getting worse with the more technology goes? Or do you think there'll ever be a breaking point where kids go back to how we were raised? You think they'll ever get tired of the technology and just be like, hey, let's go outside?
Isn't it pretty addictive?
I think it is. I agree. I think it is addictive. I think it was built to be addictive.
I'm not so sure they won't put it in the DSM 5 or 6 that's an addiction. Just like, drug addiction, electronic addiction. Can we go anywhere without our phones?
No, anymore? You start hopping onto another conspiracy theory on was it on purpose?
Well, I guess with capitalism, you want to make a product everybody wants to, continue to consume. So I'll leave it at that right now.
Yeah.
We're kind of running along. So
we are. That's all right. I don't get very many people on here that talk about all the different things that.
Hey, we can talk afterwards, man.
Oh, yeah, we sure can. But no, you're right. You lose some people if we stay on conspiracies too long, I'm sure. Yeah. So, no, I really do appreciate you coming in tonight. I know you've worked with a lot of kids, so your insight on it's really good. So, thanks for coming out.
Well, thank you. Thank you for doing this, too, and giving that opportunity to the kids. We'll try to push some more your way.
All right, sounds good.
Basketball season, you going to do it for basketball season?
Some. Probably not as much as I did football. I have a daughter that helps with the wrestling, and then we're big helping the wrestlers.
We're wrestlers, too.
Yeah.
So
hopefully we can do some with the wrestlers.
Yeah, I like it. Gives the kids some exposure, and hopefully they have fun with it.
Oh, yeah, and their family can listen and watch. Yeah. So, well, no, I appreciate you coming out. So maybe one time we'll have to get back on here and talk more conspiracy theories.
Okay. All right. Give me a fair warning.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Never take a L no more. Never take a damn thing slow. All I know is chase this